CLEMIS. I know many of you have probably heard of this, but it's the Courts Law Enforcement Management Information System. It's the largest criminal database, and it's the largest database consortium in the entire nation. And it's run right out of our Southeast Michigan offices. It has 200 public safety agencies in 5 different counties here in Southeast Michigan are all sharing data. They're sharing technologies. They're sharing governance. We actually have a governance structure for this. We charge a per sworn officer fee to be a member of CLEMIS, and then they have all of the accoutrements that come with it, computer-aided dispatch, records management, digital mugshots, crime analysis mapping, you name it, we do it. We even host websites for policing agencies outside of Oakland County on our systems. And we do that because one thing we've learned, and remember I said the health, safety, and welfare of the people? The safety of the people doesn't stop at your borders. Because the criminals, they really don't care where they go. So if you can find them, one great example of a story someone told me, there was, the fingerprint stuff is really cool. Have you ever been fingerprinted? I just got fingerprinted and I passed. But they do palm prints now and digital fingerprints, and it's all done on the live scan machines. And then they send that off to the database, and it takes minutes in many cases to get hits because they have fingerprints from all different sources loaded into this technology. So when we first rolled this out, there was a gentleman that got caught for shoplifting in one of our PDs. And usually, people don't realize, but some people that get caught for lesser crimes have actually committed worse crimes, and they're just, looking for them. So he had his brother's driver's license. So they really didn't know who he was, and his brother didn't have a record. So they were getting ready to let him go, and they wheeled out the new live scan machine. And the night before, it was on the news about these new digital fingerprinting machines. And the guy gave himself up. And, I asked the police chief, I said, why? And he said, because he knew that in about 4 minutes, they were going to figure out who he was. That's a huge paradigm shift, isn't it? I think it used to take days in many cases to do matches on fingerprints, and they would have to have an idea of who they were looking for to go then pull a certain print to do the analysis against. Now it goes against the entire database. And they take palm prints, they take the side of your hand. It's amazing. Now we even have the the two-finger fingerprints at the car. So the police officer can do them at the car and send them over the system and then get hits. CLEMIS started back in the 60s, by the way. My boss was a prosecutor at the time. He was a prosecuting attorney. And his goal was to get all the policing agencies to use the same incident form, crash form. And Terry probably knows more about what that means. But there was a form that all the different agencies used, all different forms. So he wanted to get them all into one unified form. And eventually what they did is they got mobile data terminals. Everybody know what a mobile data terminal is? It was the old LED type readout terminals they had in the car. So they were going to go put those in the car, and they wanted to put them in the center of the car. And the police officers filed a grievance at the union. Anybody know why? Because there was something else that was in the center of the car. The shotgun was racked in the center of the dashboard. And the police officer thought it was more important to be able to grab that shotgun than it was to play with this computer thing. Today, if those mobile data computers are not working in the police officer's vehicle, they won't leave the garage. The knowledge that they get from these technologies is way more important than the shotgun. Because if you know who you're walking up to, that's a whole lot different. So this whole paradigm of how we deal with law enforcement has shifted dramatically because we built enabling technologies that they could use and that were useful in the field, and they were governed. We have a governance structure, we have an advisory board. All the police chiefs sit on this advisory board and govern this system. Okay, so it's something that's very well thought out, and it works. Again, a regional collaboration to provide a much needed service to be able to combat crime. All right, now, there's the mundane stuff. A lot of people always ask me, they go, well, it's great to have all this vision, it's all great to have all these decisions, but what about the process? What do we have to do as governments to work together? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about CLEMIS too, I believe ImageSoft is doing some things in regard to CLEMIS as well that they're actually working on some connections between the prosecutor's office and some of the Clemens databases. So there are some public-private partnerships that are happening in regard to law enforcement as well. But process, the reason I want to talk about process is this where it usually breaks down. Okay, it's one thing to have the vision and say, I got this great system. It's another thing to make the decision to go do it, right? But it's another thing to build a process around actually getting it done. So at Oakland County, what we've done is we've been very careful to make sure that we're strategically looking at how we build our technology plans. We involve our customer community, which is all the business units of county government. We involve everybody in these decisions, and we build this process so that we can get things done. And one of the main issues, or one of the main aspects of that is you have to have a strategic plan. Okay? What are you trying to accomplish? So when you go to sell your project to your leadership, and if they don't understand where you're trying to go, then it becomes a spend. Anybody ever get called the black hole as the IT people? They used to call me the $1 million man. They said every time I walked in front of the Board of Commissioners, I needed another million. That's a tough thing to deal with, because then every time you have a much-needed project, they're worried about how many millions is it going to cost. So we went ahead and we developed a strategic plan, and what we were trying to do and what we were trying to find out is what were we really trying to do. So we started looking strategically at the organization to say, what are you really trying to accomplish? Am I trying to meet my customer commitments? In 1996, our county, 95, 96, our IT department had 900 backlog work orders. 900. We had more work than we could have ever dreamed of accomplishing. Yet we still promised it. We told everybody we could do it. No problem. We'll get it done. 900 of them sat there. Okay? So what we did is we went through our strategic planning. We also had executive sponsorship. See, if you don't have your leadership bought in to the whole process, people will go around it. So when we started this process, our county executive came to the IT department and said, this change in process, your ability to do things differently is the most important thing you're ever going to do. Think about that. County executive walks into your department and says, this is the most important thing you're ever going to do. So go get it done. He made the decision. So what we did is we started shifting the culture. And if you look here, we have a project management office that we implemented in the mid-90s. And the reason we did that is because we knew that we had to get our arms around what we were doing and why we were doing it. So we went ahead and did that. Then what we also did was formed IT leadership groups, where those are actually our customers that sit on these groups and help us determine the priorities for what's going to get done. So we created the PMO. We just didn't get a tool that logged projects. What we did is we put a process in place to actually manage it. And then we said, by the way, we have to include our customers. If we don't include our customers, then they're never going to buy into what we're trying to do for them. Then after that, you could develop a master plan. So if you look at what I was trying to show through these, is there was a number of goals that we had. You know, we wanted to centralize our portfolio. We wanted to know what the heck we had. We had 900 of these things, and they were written on yellow dogs and written on pads of paper, and some of them were in spreadsheets. We just didn't know what we had. So we started centralizing that portfolio. Then what we wanted to do is we wanted to mentor our people on how to do this. Now, I was a customer at the time. I was the head of equalization for the county. Anybody know what that is? I was the property tax assessor. I know you all hate me now, but that's okay. Made sure those property values were nice and high. But I was a customer, and I hated all this. I thought this was the biggest waste of time, because I thought I was calling everybody and getting everything I wanted. Come to find out, I wasn't getting what I wanted because there was all these backlog work orders. So what they did is they said, okay, let's mentor, let's educate the customer community. All of you in this room that are trying to get things done in your daily work, you have to educate the stakeholders. If you don't educate them, they will fight you. And we had both internal fights inside the IT department and external fights outside the IT department. Next, we created the leadership groups. These groups actually were like customers from like responsibilities. So we had law enforcement, or we had different groups that were put together. And then what we did is we let them go ahead and determine what their priorities were. So we took all the, everybody knows the difference between fixed labor and discretionary labor, right? So we took all our fixed labor off the top, and then what we did is then we divvied up the rest, and we let the customers determine what they wanted to use it for. We immediately bought into the process, and then it became very important for them to get things done. Shared services, there's no way you're ever going to accomplish a shared services environment unless you can get all the stakeholders at the table to work together. You've got to have a way to do that. And then next, we created the master plan. We have now created master plans since 1996, and we're in the process of creating our next 2-year master plan as we speak. And those plans, all of our customers are involved in the development of those plans. And then what it does is it transforms your organization. Process is not always a bad thing. Sometimes you got to have it to make it work. If you don't, what will happen is it'll be, I want this, okay, I'll do it. Now I want this, okay, I'll do it. Okay, but now I want this. Because remember, the customers want a lot of stuff. And I'll do it. Pretty soon you don't have enough people to do it, and then you go and say, by the way, I need more money. Or I need more people. And they're like, wait a minute. Why did you agree to do all this stuff if you didn't have the money for it? Oh, good question. Okay, so you have to know what you're doing. Now, an interesting story is my kids, they were young. They were, when I first came over to IT, they were really young. But when they got a little older, I started doing this at Christmas time. Remember the letters to Santa? And they put this giant list together. So I told them, look, you have 8 things you can ask Santa for. And you need to prioritize those 8 things. 1 through 8. This is real. I did this. It was on the refrigerator. Yeah, I'm not joking. So I said, you have to prioritize these things 1 through 8. Because if you remember, they always find something else. After they make their list, there was always the next thing. It was like having customers, right? So it was the next thing. So I said, look, if you want something different, you got to go on that list and bump something off. So my oldest son, bless his soul, this kid, he thinks all the time. So he gets up there and he's like, I really wanted that Pokemon thing, but I think I want this game. And he'd cross one out, move the list down, put the priority in there. My younger one, he's adding a number 9. He's like, oh, I'm just going to ask Santa for everything I want. I said, no, you can't do that. And so then here's the kicker, though. Ready? If you do this for your kids, then you only get them like 6 of them. Because then you teach them that they don't get everything that they ask for. All right, they'll work it out in therapy. It's okay. But my kids now prioritize what they want. I thought it was a pretty good life skill to learn, because eventually in the real world they're going to have to do that. We can't have everything, can we? I wish we could. But it transforms your organization. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is team, and I have a couple of my team members here. I have Mary Geiser, and I have Terry Myers here. They're both from Oakland County. So your team is probably one of the most important assets you have. So you can collaborate with anybody you want, but if you don't have a team that can actually deliver it, then you're just kind of running into the wind, right? So the team is very important. It's now one of our most difficult aspects of what we do. Right now, at Oakland County IT, I'm down 21% of my people. 21%. That's because the IT industry has rebounded dramatically. They're hiring our people right and left, and they're making more money. So it's kind of tough for me to keep them. But your team is important, and you have to do what you can to keep them. We believe in professional development. We send them to training. We do everything we can. What you know what I'm worried about is this new generation of people that are coming in. They don't want to work every day at work. They want to work from home. They also want these collaborative environments, and by the way, they only expect to be there for about 3 years. So think about that. So I'm going to invest all this time, and I'm going to keep people about 3 to 5 years. But I'm just going to have to get used to it. But we have to build our teams, and one of the ways we can build our teams is to collaborate with each other across different jurisdictions. So we talked about this earlier. That was in my introduction. This is our motto. Our goal is to build something once, pay for it once, and everybody get the benefit. So we look across all of county government when we build a technology to see who could use it. We also look vertically into local government to see who could use it. And then what we do is we invest in it, and then we provide it to everyone. This model has served us very well over the years because it's helped us build the partnerships we needed to build to be successful longer term. Now, here's my takeaways. How am I doing on time? Am I okay on time? Excellent. So I always like to have takeaways. because I think if you can't bring something back with you, then why do it? First, have a vision for your future. If you don't have a vision of where you're trying to go, if you don't have a plan of what you're trying to do, then you're never going to be able to sell it to anyone. Okay? So have a vision. 2, make the tough decisions. You know, sometimes you just have to do it. What was that always, it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. Sometimes it happens. You just have to go do it. And if it's the wrong decision, you have to have a plan on how you're going to deal with it, right? But you know what? If you don't make any decisions, you can never get anywhere. You have to be patient to achieve your success. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. We're talking about cloud computing. We're talking about partnerships. We're talking about public-private partnerships. We're talking about, NACO application stores. We're talking about all this G2G. We're talking about ImageSoft. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. You have to be patient to make it work. Next, manage your process. You can't just wing it. Our world will not allow it any longer. It probably didn't allow it back then, but it was a whole lot harder to figure out. But now with all the transparency issues that we have in government and all the people that are looking in and we see what folks are looking for, you have to be open, you have to be available, and those processes you have make you very open. I mentioned that my board of commissioners used to call me the $1 million man. Remember? Now, well, I used to go down for budget hearings and it'd be like an hour. I had to bring everything, take my coat off, loosen my tie. Okay, let's get in there, And we'd get in there and it'd be like an hour for the budget hearing. My last budget hearing was 3.5 minutes. I sat down. They said, do you have anything you want to say? And I said, yes. Every quarter, I bring you my management reports and all my project reports, and you see everything that I have and who I do it for. I do that every quarter. So if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And the chairperson of the finance committee said, Phil, you're right. You come every quarter and you open up your plan and you explain everything to us. Does anyone have any questions? The finance committee member said, nope. He hit the gavel. We walked out the door. IT is a huge expense. And to be able to do that, the only way you can do that is to build trust. And the one way you build trust is to manage your process. It's mundane for some. Some people will say it gets in the way of getting things done. I'd just rather go do that program instead of manage that program. But I can tell you, without our processes at Oakland County, our IT department would have failed. It would have failed miserably. And then if we failed, then the customers that are providing services fail. And then who ultimately gets the biggest failure is the citizens that are requiring the services. So it's very important that we manage our process. And for those of you that are from operational departments and not from IT groups, and IT people that are in the room, I apologize to you now. You should demand this of your IT. You should demand accountability. And the reason why you should demand accountability is because you are our partners. And if we can't be accountable to you, how can we ever be successful? Does that make sense to everybody? So demand it. Next, build a great team. I have a great team. I'd stack them up against anybody. We've done some of the most innovative projects and technologies in government that I see out there. I travel all around the country. I talk to a lot of folks, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. But also, the next evolution is going to be that we're all going to be doing it together. Okay, the team is going to get bigger because we're going to have to collaborate more. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I can't stress this enough, is I do not have a technology background. I have a telecommunications degree from Michigan State University. Go green, go white. I have that, but I was actually the property tax assessor. Remember I talked about that. So in 2000, L. Brooks Patterson came to me and said, I want you to be my director of information technology. And I said, time out. I don't have a technology background. Now here's a guy that a lot of people, he's over 70 years old now. And a lot of people would say, why would he make that decision? And he looked right at me and said, if I wanted a technology person, I go over to that building that I have a bunch of them in, and I'd pick one of them. So what I want is a person that's going to help people use the technologies that we build for them. That was a pretty unique vision back in 2000. I mean, there weren't many CIOs even back in 2000. So he was ahead of the curve on that, but he realized that the value of the technology, the strategic value of technology, is how it's being used, not what we're building and how we're building it and what technology we're using to build it in, but how we're using it to better the lives of the people that we provide service for. Communicating that is very difficult, and I had to learn. My county commissioners, this is one more interesting story. So I had a plan. Our master plan is like 40 pages long. So I would present that to them, you know, when I've been doing this for 12 years, so it was early on. And I'd give it to them, and they'd say, whoa, wait a minute. We're not going to read 40 pages. Sounds like Congress, but everybody get that joke? All right, anyway, so the 40 pages. And so they said, we want something smaller. So I created a 3-page executive summary. And I sent it to them. They said, whoa, wait a minute. That's too short. So this is exactly what I said. I'm not joking. I said, the bed's too hard. The bed's too soft. What do you want? So they formed a committee 12 years ago that was going to look at what they wanted. So what I did was they said, look, I'm not going to make them do that. So I went and formed like a 9-page report that had enough detail in it, but yet wasn't so voluminous that they wouldn't read it. And that's the report we've been using for 12 years. They get that. They have a person that they have on our leadership groups that gets the full report. I present them the 9-pager, and I present them my invoice for all my services for each quarter. And they see that every quarter, and they have for the last 12 years. And I can tell you it's built trust, but that's a lot of communicating, a ton of communicating. And then last but not least, get it done. You know, we're measured on our results. If we can't provide the technologies that that our customers expect, and we haven't managed their expectations, we are doomed to failure. So one of the ways that we're going to work our way out of this economy, and one of the ways that we're going to provide better services, is we're going to work together on these things. We're going to plan them. We're going to put governance around it. We're going to involve private sector partners, and then we are going to get it done. If there's one thing you took from it today, one thing you take from this at all, is you have to get it done. No matter what the decision is or the vision, it's useless if there's no product on the back end of it. Okay? And one other piece, too, that I didn't put on here. It's not the technology that drives the business, folks. It's the business that drives the technology. All we are is the enabler. So I look at my role as a customer service role. I'm enabling other people to get their jobs done. And if we can keep that in the front of our mind, that's another way that we can sell the benefits of providing technologies. So that's what my prepared remarks were. If anyone has any questions, do I have time for questions? I do. So I'll take any questions. If anyone has any. I know it's early. Everybody have coffee? Yes. How do you energize an IT department? Mountain Dew. Don't say that. I can't have caffeine. That's not fair. That used to be my drink of choice, Mountain Dew. How do you energize an IT department? Well, first of all, do they understand what you're trying to accomplish? They still like XP. Well, I'll let that go. But no. All right, so first of all, I talked about something very important here about building your team. They have to understand the vision of where you're trying to go. And if you've laid that vision out very carefully for them, and they were part of helping you develop that vision, then they're a lot more likely to buy in. If the problem is if this is a dictatorship, where you simply walk in and say, you're all going to do this, and that's all they know, I don't know about you, but my teenage sons, I can't just tell them to do things anymore without explaining it to them. Before it was because I said so. Okay, Dad. Now it's, wait a minute. I'm not sure that's right. Well, no, it's right because I said so. Well, that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work with your IT staff either. They have to be actively involved. We have regular staff meetings every quarter. I have everybody in a room. And we talk about our vision, and we talk about where we're going. Everybody reads the master plan. Everybody's involved in analyzing the master plan. And by the way, our people are actively involved with our customers, helping develop the master plan. That changes everything once they're involved. But if they're not involved, you will never energize them. And so, involve them. Involve them in the decision making. There was another question here.
And I've seen that, I saw the NACO presentation. Could you explain explain a little bit more about what's going to be in there so everybody here understands how they can participate and what they could get from it if they do?
Sure. So the NACO project, what's going to be in there is that anything in your portfolio from a county perspective that you want to put in there that others can then search and get information on is what's going to be there. So it'll be the applications. It'll be who provides them. It will be, is it shareable? There will also be a contact information for that application. So if there's a certain person you want them to call to ask questions, there's going to be an email capability to start a dialogue in regard to that. And then it will also be the customer community impacted. So all that information is going to be stored in there. So if I want to do an ERP system, I can type in ERP, and it will search the entire database for who has an ERP, who they're using, how they did it, and then there's going to be an ability for me to communicate with them on what were the pros and cons and what we can do better next time. So all that information will be there. Now, it won't be like you can go in there and just get an app. I know they call it the application store. It wasn't my first choice of names, but it'll be a place where we can house all that data so they can share it, so they can benefit from it. Does that make sense? Other questions for me? Yes?
In terms of the application store, is there any problem with confidentiality and the information that goes in there? How do you get through that process?
Well, okay, so confidentiality, it's secure access, so it'll be username and password. You'll get that from the NACO authentication, right? So if you're a NACO member already, then you have a membership to their portal. That would be the authentication you would use to go ahead and get into this application store. The information is only what people are putting in there, so it's not like they're putting in some critical security type pieces that they're worried about getting rid of. The other thing too is, and I hate to say this, sorry guys, but the vendor community does not have access to it. And the reason why the vendor community does not have access to it is because the counties all said they don't want everybody descending on them. If they go in there and type in ERP and they're looking for an ERP system, then every ERP vendor descends upon them to try to get them to get a system. But there is going to be an opportunity for the private sector to be involved in the application store. Now, the other piece of that, too, is for ImageSoft and for Highland, you have a lot of folks that use your technologies, right? You're going to be able to they're going to be putting their technology into the store, and it's going to be provided, the vendor community is Highland or it's ImageSoft, and here's the people that we're going to communicate with. Is it shareable? Yes or no? And by the way, here's the customers it impacts. So we're not really worried about someone getting a piece of information from someone else because it's what we put in. We're willing to let that out, but it will have username and password and authentication, and then the vendor community is not allowed in to go ahead and see, because that's the other thing too, is that we don't want them searching the database on the counties, finding out they have an aging document management system, and then Scott sends the troops in, people in the blue shirts. Oh no, I'll show up. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions for me? Going once? Twice? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.